All right, it's a little after 7, so we are going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Welcome to our September school board meeting. We really appreciate you guys all joining us tonight. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have one change to the agenda that I want to make note of at this time. It's just a small one, but SEA will be providing a report prior to the board members. So if you can just make a little note on your agenda for that. Our first order of business is to review the consent agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No opposed, so the motion carries 5-0. All right, our next section is titled Spotlight On, where we welcome the principals from each building to the podium to share a little about their first week. This was one of my favorite parts of our meeting last September. It was probably my most favorite part of our meeting last September. I know I had the privilege this last week of going around to the schools with Dr. Lyon, and we got to go into each school and greet some children and see some teachers. And it was, for me, really exciting. I know you guys get to do this year after year, but it was my first opportunity to get to do it. And it was so exciting to see all those little happy faces and teachers that at least appeared to be refreshed and excited to get going. So we are really excited to hear your guys' experience of the first week. And to start us off, we will have Mrs. Mitchell from Huxville. Oh, it just said Mitchell. I made that assumption. Sorry, Mr. Mitchell, you can go ahead. She's next. It's next to the other elementary principals.
All right, thank you. Superintendent Lyon, Board Chair Hawkins, and School Board, thank you for having us here today. Very excited to get to talk about our first couple weeks at the high school. Before I start any of that, I do want to take a quick minute to introduce my associate principals who are here today, who, for all the different reasons that have been going on over the last few years, I'm not sure that the board has got a chance to really meet them, and one of them is new this year. So we have Katie Voss, Mike Stead, and Caitlin Everett here. So look forward to all of us getting to interact with all of you this year. So I'm going to start with our in-service week and just go through a little bit of that so you kind of have an idea of what we're working on with our staff, and then get into what's been going on with the kids. I was really, really nervous about what this in-service week would be after these last couple of years and how teachers were feeling when they left last June. And it was deflated. It was low energy. It was it was tough over the last couple of years. And so coming into this, I just didn't know what to expect. And I was blown away at the positivity and the energy and the excitement that our staff had to get started on this school year. And we based our whole in-service week around 3 essential questions. They were, what are the Sherwood High School goals for 2022-23, and how do they apply to me, my role, the school district, etc.? How do we collaborate to ensure we create an engaging, rigorous learning community for all students? And what structures and systems will support us in actualizing a more inclusive school community? And so everything we did went back to those 3 questions and really kept a focus for the week for our staff to improve and get together and those kind of things. So we, some topics that we touched on were establishing deeper professional learning communities, continue our work on standards-based grading, providing equitable access to learning for all students, and safety and security for all of our building and all our people involved that come in every day. And throughout that, we worked on establishing relationships and connections to everybody. And one of the other parts is we really talked about establishing our new normal. And we really tried not to talk about going back to normal, because we wanted to meet kids where they were at right now and have a focus on teaching them anything that they may need to grow. And so we identified 2 areas to teach them as a staff, and that is to be engaged in their learning and to be accountable to their learning. And so our year throughout the year, we're going to go back to those questions and those two things that our staff identified as ways that we can support and teach kids. So it was just a really, really wonderful week of staff working to build up kids, and that's what it's all about. And then we had the opportunity to have our Thursday was our link day with just our freshmen and new students. And that was, it's always a very exciting time. We've got all these freshmen coming in who are this big to, this big, and they're all at different stages of growing. And it's just fun to watch them come in, and a lot of energy, a lot of excitement, a lot of nervousness, a lot of anxiousness. And by the end of the day, they all left there confident. They left excited. Getting to live in the community, and I came to football practice out here and ran into 5 or 6 of them, and they all had great things to say. And that's really the work of some of our staff and a lot of link leaders that put a lot of time and effort into making that, those students, for making that for our freshmen and new students. And then on Friday, we had our first day of school, and we had, there's just nothing better than a building full of kids, and to have it alive and the energy and the positivity was fantastic. We started the day with a pep rally, and it was loud. It was just rambunctious, and got to celebrate all the different things going on, even to the point where the seniors aren't going to like this, but I think the freshmen may have been louder than the seniors in the assembly, and everything in between with the juniors and the sophomores. And it was just super exciting to have everybody in there and get, crowded in there together and get going again. We've missed that for quite a while. We have, outside of the classroom, we're back to a full offering of all of our extracurricular activities. And I've talked about it before. One of my favorite things about the high school is that everybody finds a passion, and we have a lot of things to support those passions for kids, and they want that for each other. And so to have all those things going again is just fantastic. We have record number of turnouts in our clubs, record number of turnouts in band and choir, our theater. We have a performance coming up. We even had a field trip go to Ashland yesterday for a Shakespeare play. And so just getting to have those things, those opportunities for kids again is just wonderful. And it's just I've said it a million times already. The energy in the building is wonderful. It's not a unique opportunity, but it's not one that everybody gets, but I get to have my son, I get to have my son at the school, and to get to watch what we've all worked for to grow as a culture and all those things, to get to watch that through his eyes and his experience it's just, and to see the positivity that he's experiencing is really cool. He's always liked being at school, but didn't always love going to school. And he came home, well, actually I'll get to that, but he just talks on and on about the culture and the climate and the way the teachers are supporting him, and the upperclassmen are supporting each other, and all of those kind of things. And so to get that, what I think is going on, to have it reinforced, and all the work that our staff are doing, and our administrators and our office staff and our custodians, to see that all come together like firsthand right in front of you is just amazing. And on Friday, he came home and he said, these are the 2 best days of school that I have ever had. And I think that I know there are 1,000+ kids at that school that feel the exact same way, because this year feels special and it feels amazing. And so we're off to a great start, and I would invite you all to come in, check it out, and we're just really proud of what's going on. So thank you for allowing me to talk, and I'd like to introduce Millie Wilkinson from Middleton Elementary.
I'm shorter. Good evening, Superintendent Lyon, Board Chair Hawkins, and Board of Directors. I'm excited to share with you about the start of the school year at Middleton. And as many of you know, our elementary schools, we work together during our in-service week and have shared professional development. So rather than hearing the same things 4 times, we're each going to be speaking to a topic from in-service week. We kicked off our in-service week with our staff all together and did some connection activities. And at Middleton, we have several new staff members. So we spent some time just getting to know each other and each other's stories, building relationships and strengthening existing relationships, which was time well spent. We also spent some time reflecting on our hopes and dreams for Middleton, and we did some work around vision. So we broke into individual small groups and staff generated vision statements around their hopes and dreams for Middleton. And then since in-service week, we've had some time to go back and staff members have all given input around the vision statement. And there were some themes that arose from that I thought you might be interested to know about. One of the themes was having a welcoming culture. Another theme was connection, and also a student-centered learning community. And so we're going to continue with that work, and hopefully as we refine the vision statement, have a unified vision statement that then is sort of our touchstone for the year and guides our work moving forward. The first weeks of school have gone really well. It's my first year back at Middleton, so I've spent a lot of time just getting to know our students and families, which has been really fun. And we welcomed our youngest group of students this year with the addition of pre-K, which was extra special. And I was just amazed at how quickly our pre-K and kindergarten students just got into routines. One example of that is a pretty funny story. So our primary teachers teach the routine during pickup at the end of the day for finding your car. And so students are taught to look as the cars are driving through the pickup line. And if they see their car, they're supposed to tell their teacher, I see my car, or I see my mom. And so one little kindergartner was watching the cars go and more of his classmates leave. And I think he started to get a little worried when there were just like a few of them left. And he's looking and he says exasperatedly to his teacher, Mrs. Goodman, I don't see my owner. So he knew the routine. He just didn't have the lingo quite down. One of the highlights for sure has been spending time in classrooms and getting to know individual students and their interests and hobbies outside of school. And, you know, there are some common themes that come up: pets, sports, dance, things like that. But one thing that was said to me like a number of times was, I like your hair. And I thought, well, I haven't been in elementary school in a few years. Maybe this is just what elementary school students, they say, I like your hair, when they don't know what to say. And so I was talking to Miranda Johnson and she assured me, no, that is not a common thing to have said to you. And so we were trying to figure out why they were saying that to me. And it occurred to me, oh, Mr. Woolmuth, their principal for many years, had no hair. And so I don't think it's that they like my hair. I think they just think it's interesting I have hair, maybe. But in all seriousness, it's been a really great start to the school year. The enthusiasm and the excitement in the building, like Adam said, it's palpable. Kids are learning and making friends, and staff are quickly building relationships with students. And I'm really grateful also for the support from our families in the role they played in getting the school kicked off successfully. Our 4 elementary schools are looking forward to seeing our students and their families at the fun run in the upcoming weeks. And we're also hoping to relaunch some of our clubs like Chess Club, OBOB, and Passport Club very soon as well. Looking forward to a great year at Middleton, and the beginning of the year has me really excited for what's yet to come. And I'm turning it over to Miranda Johnson from Ridges.
Right. Thank you, Millie. Good evening, Superintendent Lyon, Chair Hawkins, Board of Directors. I'm excited to be here tonight to share with you a little bit about our first weeks at school. As Millie mentioned, our elementary staff participated in many shared professional development sessions in August. And one such PD that was especially helpful for our staff was the I Love You Guys training with the I Love You Guys Foundation. Every elementary staff, from teachers to nutrition services to custodians and support staff, spent 3.5 hours together during our PD work week to review our standard response safety protocols. The training was led by one of the National I Love You Guys Foundation trainers, and staff received many examples of effective safety protocols, as well as information about planning for emergency situations. They had opportunities to engage with one another about safety training topics and to ask questions throughout our time spent together. Overall, the training was well received and also provided great opportunities for school level questions and follow up within our own buildings in the weeks to come. On a more specific building level, I would like to share with you a couple highlights specifically from Ridges in our first weeks back at school there. First off, I'm excited to report, for those of you who have followed my back to school highlights in years prior, that going into year 5 as principal of Ridges, this is the very first year that we did not have a broken bone at school or during online learning on the first day of school. So we were super happy and proud about that. I was also reminded this last week just how much I love kindergarten. I was in a classroom and a little kiddo was writing their letters and everyone was working on writing the letter A. And I sat down next to him to watch him work and he looked up at me and he goes, "Mrs. Johnson, could you please tell my teacher to do the letter Z tomorrow?" And I was like, why do you need to do the letter Z tomorrow? And he's like, because then I will be finished with the alphabet and I can get to first grade. Finally, I would like to highlight our most exciting news at Ridges for the month of September. For those of you who may not have heard, we hired one of our amazing custodians to be the new assistant principal at Ridges, and what a true gift that has been. As many of you know, Mr. Smith was a previous building principal at all 3 of our other elementary schools, but he retired and has been serving the district as a custodian for the past year. He has graciously agreed to serve as our assistant principal at Ridges for the coming year, and we could not be more thankful. His change in job title has been the talk with our students this week. And one sweet student told me on Monday, "Mrs. Johnson, I met the new principal and he looks exactly like the guy who used to clean my lunch table." More importantly than that, I had a parent reach out to me and tell me that their child came home so excited their custodian is now the principal. And he looked up at his mom and he said, "Mom, you were right. You really can grow up to be anything you put your heart to." It's a true blessing to have Mr. Smith joining our staff in this new role to start the school year with such excitement and positivity. It's been a while since we've been able to just focus on student learning and growth without the addition of COVID safety procedures, and that has definitely been a welcomed change. I have no doubt that this year will be amazing at Ridges, and I am looking forward to all that we will accomplish in the months ahead. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to share a little bit about what we've been up to these last few weeks. I'm now going to turn it over to Ms. Funderhyde to share a little bit from the middle school.
Oh, thank you. So Board Chair Hawkins, Superintendent Lyon, and Board of Directors, thank you for this opportunity to be here tonight to talk about, share some stories and some events that have happened during in-service week and with the students' return. So I'm really, like with everybody, pleased with the school, how the school year started, the energy, the positiveness that's happening within the staff, all staff and the students is just really refreshing for me. And it's been just a highlight. We had a very successful in-service week, a little bit different in-service week. Our staff actually was tasked to rescue our administrative team from a parallel universe when they returned. Yes, that's right. Our team was being held in an escape room until teams of staff could rescue us by going through a multiple of challenges and puzzles, and thankfully they did, and we were rescued. It was a completely different way of beginning the school year, and it allowed us to immediately connect with each other, bring laughter into the building, and really set a stage for a positive launch week. There's a video that goes with that if you ever want to see it. Last spring, we gathered information from staff and students just about last year and spent a great deal of time reflecting this summer about the administrative team, what we wanted to focus on this year. That was based on student and staff feedback. And so with that, where we landed was with 3 categories or pillars in all that we will do this year. And those are connection and relationships, sustainable systems, and high impact instructional strategies. The focus in these areas will keep us moving in the right direction and guide our decisions. Examples of what would fall under these 3 pillars are things that we can control, like student support, setting clear expectation and learning intentions, building safe and respectful classroom communities, and we are noticing a huge difference. After our first week of in-service, our staff was ready and excited to welcome back our students. So on Thursday, September 1st, our 6th graders arrived, and first day of middle school in 6th grade there's some anxiety and nervousness that comes with that. But our leadership students were there to help navigate the building, their schedules and lockers, and that was really helpful. This year, we were also able to have an assembly with all of the 6th graders on that first day in the gym together, and that was amazing. During the assembly, we introduced staff, reviewed what it looks like to be in middle school, and planned an activity for the students to participate in. One of the highlights for me was during that assembly. I was doing a quick check-in like I always do to find out and celebrate what elementary school each of the kids came from. And at the end, I asked how many of you are new to Sherwood and to SMS. Those students raised their hands, and the rest of the students showed them a warm Sherwood Middle School welcome with a huge round of applause. The best part of it, that it was student led, and it was a perfect launch to what we want to create, and that's a sense of belonging for all students. The following day, we had 1,137 students in our building. We also had an assembly for the 7th and 8th graders, and they also welcomed the new students to Sherwood Middle School with a warm applause. Now, it's worth noting 8th grade, it might have been more like a golf clap applause, but nonetheless, it was a real sense of community, which has been really hard to do the last couple of years. With building community as our focus, we are also kicking off the year with our flex time. And this is a 34-minute time period at the end of the day on Tuesdays and Thursdays. This time provides another opportunity for students and staff to make connections. It allows for student choice, very important for middle schoolers. And as the year progresses, will provide a space for students to engage in interventions and extensions in learning, seek help from individual teachers, and participate in activities of interest to them. I've enjoyed connecting with the students during the first few days of school, as their energy is contagious and they can be very reassuring. The first day for 6th graders, I had a young lady ask me for directions to room W1. I had to admit to her, I can't tell you where that room number is, but if you tell me who the teacher is, I think I can help you. So she did, and I was able to point her in the right direction. I apologized again for not knowing exactly where that room was. She assured me by saying, "That's okay, Miss Funderheide. Principals have a lot to remember." On Monday, after our parent support organization meeting, I had a mom tell me that the first several days of her 6th grade students, at the end of her 6th grade students' day, she asked her son, "What were the ups and downs of your day?" After about the 5th day, he finally said, "You don't need to ask me about the downs, Mom. There aren't any." So with that, I think that's a good place to stop. It has been a really, really different start to the year, and it's just really, really invigorating and refreshing, and more than welcome to come and visit anytime that you're available. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Amy Mitchell.
Good evening, Superintendent Lyon, Board Chair Hawkins, and school board members. From day one, there was a different feeling in the building. Teachers felt rested and ready to return to a more normal year of teaching. There was an excitement and anticipation that we have not had in years. During in-service week, the elementary level spent time reestablishing our multi-tiered systems of supports and discussing what professional learning communities would look like this year. With early release Wednesdays, teachers have a built-in hour each week to dive into their data and make real-time instructional decisions to support our students. Not only is time dedicated to this work, but they get to do so collaboratively with their teams and with specialists. Anytime teachers come together to make instructional decisions, plan interventions, or extensions, our kids benefit. We know now more than ever that our students are coming to us with academic and social emotional needs. During our professional development, we spent time reviewing the standards in those areas and beginning to create plans of action. This work will carry with us throughout the year. We were fortunate enough to bring supply night back this year. I noticed a few times that I found myself stepping back to take it all in. It's the small things we've taken for granted: seeing smiles, shaking hands, and getting to meet each other face to face. Students were thrilled to see their classrooms. They got to show their parents around the building, and they got to see teachers from the past and meet their new teacher. Our mascot, Thunder, the hawk, was front and center as you walked into the building, and he was a highlight for most students, except a kindergartner who stopped in his tracks, looked at me with wide eyes and said, "You're going to get rid of that bird, right?" As the first day approached, the energy remained high as we prepared to welcome our students back. Staff laughter filled our hallways and their joy was contagious. We were ready. The first day was smooth and normal. As I visited classrooms, I saw connections being made, routines being established, and friends reuniting. A teacher told me that her students seemed truly happy to be back. They were content They were proud to be back in their school and back with the people that they've grown to love and enjoy. When I asked some students how they felt about being back, they shared, Hawksview is the best school. It's fun to be with my friends again. My teacher is really funny. And Mrs. Mitchell, do you love my new dress? Finally, I couldn't help but pause several times over the last few weeks as the new Hawksview principal. I am honored to lead alongside this staff and be part of such an amazing community. I was especially grateful for this funny evening story from a mom. She shared with me that it was during dinner when she and her son had a conversation about his first day. He mentioned that the new principal came to their classroom to read a story to the class. He commented on how nice this new principal was, but also, Mom, I need you to know she's really short. We are looking forward to an amazing year at Hawksview with an all-school assembly next week and our fun run the following week and many other events being planned. School feels normal again, and it feels pretty incredible. And with that, I would like to introduce Patrick Shekrow.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Shekrow, Superintendent Lyon, Chair Ecker. Oh my goodness, Chair Hawkins. I'm the one, Chair Hawkins, Board of Directors. You know, as I'm listening to our 6 buildings share, it is incredible how positive of a start of a year that it's been. I mean, that is just amazing. And to be honest, I thought the positivity in my building was about me, but it's not. It's something better than me. It's about us, which is incredible. And I think that's the takeaway that I'm taking from tonight, is that there's so much happening across our district that we can be proud of, that we can be joyous about, that I'm so glad that we have this time that we can share. Like my colleagues, I'll be sharing a little bit about In-Service Week with a focus on asset-based language and asset-based approaches. That's something that we talked about, as well as sharing some reflections from the beginning of this school year. First of all, with In-Service Week, a little bit of background might be helpful. This is a week that is so important to us. There's a lot of planning that goes behind that. It starts early in the spring, and there's any number of conversations making sure that that time is as meaningful as it can be for our staff. It provides a really important time for us to launch into the year on a positive note, as well as one that sets our priorities for the school year. And that's where this idea of assets really came out, is understanding our students in a way that is strength-based and in a way that's individualized, so that we can build relationships and be in a place where we feel that it's very joyous and community-oriented. There's a few defining characteristics about an asset-based approach that I'd like to highlight. One of which is that it takes a very inclusive or broad view of what strengths are. And so this means that those strengths that are traditionally found within schools, like being great at math, of course, that is a strength that we can acknowledge. It happens every day in our buildings. But we also know that our students have any multitude of strengths, and that those should also be expressed and acknowledged and welcome within our schools. And a part of that is represented in the wide array of electives that we have at our secondary levels and our specialists at the elementary level. And it's a part of the way that we interact with students on an everyday basis. This idea of assets, it is a simple one, but it has wide application. One point of application is a systems application. It allows us to see that there's multiple pathways. There's multiple ways to be successful, to be a citizen of our community. And what does it mean for us to really tap into different student strengths? Another application is relational. When we as teachers, as adults in a child's life, if we see them in a way that they see themselves, if we see them in a way that really draws from their strengths, then we become a teacher that is meaningful to them. I think for a lot of us, we've had that teacher or that coach who saw a strength in us and maybe we didn't ourselves recognize. And that teacher becomes a part of our story. They become a part of the reason why we are who we are today. And so when we start to build intentionality into how we build our relationships through this idea of strengths, then we can do that more and more and more. Finally, there is a technical instructional application about strengths as well. And that's the idea that when you know where students are, then you know what their next step is. A part of a teacher's job is to understand our students' weaknesses. It just is. We have to assess, we have to know what gaps to fill, but a list of weaknesses that does not put that in order. It doesn't tell us what our next step is. Instead, what a student can do, what their strengths are, that helps us determine what their next step is. And that is what leads to intentional, incremental growth over time that leads to future success. So we're really happy about this topic. It was a great launching point for us. It's a great framing conversation with a lot of application to a wide set of domains. And so we're interested in learning more about this throughout the year. In regard to our first few weeks of school, I'd like to first offer some thanks. So thank you to our staff, our transportation department, nutritional department, our teachers, our classified staff, welcoming thousands of students into our 6 buildings plus our Independence Academy. That is no small feat. And just because we manage to pull it off every year does not mean it should go unrecognized. So thank you so much to all of our staff out there. Second, I'd like to thank our families for all of their support as usual. We know that one characteristic of our community is how engaged and how supportive our community is, and that has been in full force this year. And I'd also like to express my gratitude for their gratitude. There's been such a sense of joy and happiness coming into this school year. It's been palpable, it's been real, and frankly, it's something that I just haven't felt before to this level. So it's been such a wonderful start to this year. Finally, I'd like to thank our district leaders. You have set the stage and you are being an example of who we are. We are students first, and that's expressed here every time you meet. We are community above self, and I see it, I hear it every time we talk, and I know that together we can do hard things. Finally, like the Mitchells, I have the great joy of having my own kids come to my building, and I had no idea how magical that would be. So what I have for you in closing is a tale of 2 kindergartners. The first is a little girl. She is responsible and sincere, and she's so excited about school. After her first day, she excitedly shared with almost complete disbelief that she made a best friend. She shared it in a way that it made me think that she thought that best friends were was like a fairy tale thing, you know, like true love's first kiss. And she realized that no, this is actual things. Like you can make friends that are wonderful. And of course, I want to know who they are. So I asked her, what's her name? And she said, I don't know, but I miss her so much. The second kindergartner is a little boy. He is shy, and he doesn't often show his sense of humor or all that he knows. He also made a best friend on that first day, and that best friend was his teacher, who he did not leave her side for the entire recess. He chose to observe rather than join in, which is just fine. It took him about a week before he told me that he played with someone today. I asked him, what's their name? And he said, I don't know, as if it never occurred to him that that was an important detail. I think in there, you know, as a parent, it's so hard not to like self-reflect and learn lessons from your children. I mean, they truly are our greatest teachers. And from there, I'm taking lessons. I can't help it. One of which is to hold joy in those moments when things are new and exciting. So pause, love it, just be in that moment. Another is always knowing that when you're feeling scared or anxious, there's always people there who are looking out for you, who want to be there for you. That's his teacher. And then finally, I don't know if this is like a lesson that I need to teach my kids to introduce themselves using their name or something, but I think also it's that we actually don't need to know that much about each other to offer goodwill. We are all here. We are all Archer Glen Eagles. We are all Sherwood Bowman. And I think that's enough. I think that means that we can do great things together. I think that means that we can share joy. And I think that it means that we all belong. On behalf of my colleagues, thank you for letting us share, and thank you.
Thank you all for being here. And thank you for sharing with us. Thank you for leading our schools. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Our kids are very lucky. And I know I saw so many big and small acts of kindness and friendship in all of our buildings. And our kids really are very lucky. I I think you hit it right on. Did anybody else have anything they wanted to add this evening? Go ahead.
I was gonna save it for my board report.
You can do that.
I'll just say it now. I don't know if it's normal to get all teary-eyed during what you guys during the spotlight on, but I just really truly enjoyed listening to all of that. And it's so exciting. You know, the kids are the reason we're all here, you know, and to hear those great stories, and not only about the kids, but also the staff being so happy and excited. And it's just it's just great to hear that. It just shows why we're all here. And it's for the kids, and everybody just really wants what's best for the kids. And I think that's what unites all of us in the end. With Mr. Mitchell, I got especially teary-eyed when you were talking about having your kid in high school, because I could say the exact same thing about, I have 2 kids in high school, and I've been so pleased to hear what they've been telling me. You know, shockingly, one of my kids' favorite teachers is his math teacher, and he's always hated math. And I'm like, wow. And why is that? And it's because he said, well, he's really supportive. And it's really great to hear how they're so excited about school and learning, and they're so engaged and they feel supported. And I know that they're not the only ones that the students in this district feel that way. And that's all because of you guys. So thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you again for being here. I know that you guys have had many long days. So if any of you want to duck out after this portion of the evening, you are welcome to. We will not fault you for that. We are going to move along to our reports for the evening. And for that, we're going to start with Dr. Lyon.
Great, thank you. And before the team leaves, thank you for those really impactful words. Those were just marvelous to hear. And you know, one quick thing, you know, we we were very intentional about the focus on bringing back that enthusiasm and that joy of what this is all about. But to be intentional about it, but to actually do it requires people like yourselves, leaders like yourselves. So just great job. Fantastic. Wonderful. Thank you. I have 2 quick reports. One is just the feedback on the listening session that we held at Ridges last week. Very well attended for a listening session. Usually staff outnumbers the people who attend, but not in this case. And we had a very dynamic dialogue over the hour and a half. And we kind of wanted to do it to offer the full exposure of the thing that's on the curriculum on the agenda tonight, and that is the K-5 social science curriculum. But we talked about a lot more than that. And one of the things, the themes that is also kind of an important part of this year is really that commitment to transparency. And what that means is different to different people, but simply having the availability of leaders and principals and district leadership and the board to talk and engage with the community is absolutely critical. And it really defines in a lot of ways the Sherwood community. So we're going to be doing more of these listening sessions, and hopefully they will continue to be well attended. And the format was good. You can ask about anything, and people did ask about anything. A lot of interesting topics related to some of the things you're seeing across the country, some things specific to Sherwood related to public education and how things are done in public education. So it was a great success, and we had a lot of positive feedback. The second thing I want to report on is I spent the morning with Sandy Miller, our transportation director, and I will make a plug. We are 6 bus drivers short in this community, and that's a lot for a small community like Sherwood. So if you want a great paying hourly wage job with great benefits, then talk to us because we need 6 drivers. And I'd like to thank the parents for being patient as Sandy and her team works out all of these routing issues and the new traffic load, the highways, the construction that they're doing. You know, every minute of delay, every second light that you have to sit through potentially makes that bus late. And so Sandy and her team is working through all of that. They run currently 14 regular routes and 6 special education routes, and they need drivers. And what happens when you're short 6 drivers is everyone in the office, including Sandy, takes a route and drives. And so how that translates then is if a parent in the afternoon calls over to the transportation center, they might not have a person there to answer the phone because that person who would normally do that is out driving a route. So again, thank you to parents for being patient. It's a tough spot. The driver shortage is not something that is unique to Sherwood, certainly. As we all know, every district and municipality is encountering the same kind of challenges to get drivers. And one of those challenges is that from the time you express an interest in becoming a bus driver, it takes 6 weeks to get that CDL license. And so that's 6 weeks where you're not earning money. And this is the kind of job where people, they need to earn that money. So it takes some pre-planning that makes it difficult to get drivers. The only other thing I'll say about the experience today that was great, I certainly didn't have an appreciation. I can look at a district boundary map, but when you really drive the roads to the west of here and drive our district to the east, clear over to the Costco on the other side of I-5, you really have a kind of a aha moment of how large a district we are relative to 4,700 students. And so a lot of our buses are heading into the hills and heading over to the east side and picking up not a lot of kids, but they still are transporting those kids back and forth to school. So it really is quite an operation. And the last thing I'll say about the transportation world is, of course, it's all related to those bad weather days and those icy roads. And there is nothing like going and actually seeing those roads as we come into the season where at 3 in the morning, we'll all be huddled talking about those roads. You kind of need to know where they are and where the hot spots are. And so there's 2 layers to our kind of system of how we evaluate whether or not we're going to delay school, not have school, or a green light go. And that is, not only are the superintendents talking and using emergency information about the weather alerts and all of that, getting the latest, greatest, but we have people driving the roads beginning at about 3 in the morning and actually reporting back real-time conditions. Because one thing you get a sense of when you drive with Sandy is how many, what I term as microclimates we have here, right? So you can go around a bend and actually go down a little bit and be in a really icy spot, and then come up and be clear, and then go up a little higher and you're at the snow line. So they have to really dial into all of that to evaluate conditions and make the right decision. And in making the right decision, you know that someone's going to go away unhappy, and that's okay. We will always put the safety of kids first. We will never put a staff member or a student out on the roads if conditions are not okay. And that's a group collaborative effort that uses a lot of data points to arrive at that decision very early in the morning. So great morning with Sandy. Hats off to her drivers and herself for directing a great team over there at transportation.
Thank you very much. All right, Ms. Paisley, if you have an update for us or a report, you're welcome to share.
All right, thank you. The first thing I want to talk about is last Friday, Fox 12 came to our school and they showcased it was a pep rally kind of thing. And the football team was there, as well as the dance and cheer team and some representatives from student council. And a couple of us actually got to speak on the news, and it was really nerve-wracking, but I did it and it was super exciting. And it was just, the point of it was just to get excited for the school year and get hyped for the game that night. And then the week before that, Mr. Mitchell already spoke about it. but he talked about the success of our first assembly altogether, having all 4 classes. It was, in my opinion, the smoothest assembly that we've had to date at the new high school, which was really exciting. And yeah, and so next Friday we have the homecoming parade at 4, and we're still looking for like parent volunteers. So I have 2 contacts that you guys can ask me about if you know anybody who wants to volunteer for that. And yeah, then the next Saturday is homecoming, so that's going to be really great. And yeah, that's all I have today.
Thank you. We're super excited for homecoming. Okay, and then I will welcome Mr. Kyler Pace to the podium. Our SEA.
Good evening, Chair Hawkins, Dr. Lyon, board directors. Thank you for the opportunity to join tonight's meeting and to introduce myself and give a report on behalf of the Sherwood Education Association. My name is Kyler Pace, and I am this year's president of the SEA, and I'm also a 5th grade teacher at Archer Glen. Last week, I met with our team of building representatives, and I'm pleased to report that it has been a relatively smooth start to the school year, as you've heard from our Spotlight on reports earlier. One common theme that I heard as well was that teacher morale is much higher this year than we've seen in recent years, which of course we're really excited to hear. For many years now, SEA and the district have had open lines of communication, as well as a joint understanding that our goal is to work together in a collaborative fashion, and we've seen many positive outcomes as a result. In keeping with this effort, SEA met with district leaders in August prior to the school year to propose a couple of goals that we would like to work on this year. First, we've requested to partner with the district to engage in a process to review our student conduct and discipline procedures that are currently in place, while making sure to maintain a focus on building relationships with students. We want to ensure that the policies in place at each level are appropriate and help to minimize classroom disruptions with the ultimate goal of improving outcomes for all students. The middle school has already begun some work this year, focusing on their cell phone policy. Because of this, I've already heard that disruptions in the classroom due to cell phone use at the middle school have already decreased significantly, which we're happy to hear. As you heard earlier this evening, this goal will closely align with the district strategic plan goal of developing the MTSS behavior model. And as we move forward, we'll look for ways to partner with the district in that process. Our second goal is around campus security. As you know, there's been a heightened interest in school safety since last spring. We've asked the district to engage in a collaborative messaging campaign to come from our building administrators, school parent groups, and key community partners to communicate to the public that our school playgrounds, tracks, fields, and other areas of our campuses are closed to the public during our school hours. We believe that with this additional communication, the community will understand the importance of this policy to help keep our campuses secure. I look forward to updating you on our progress with these goals and other things as they come up throughout the year. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. You know, one thing I thought I might mention to you, because I know I've heard this come up before when we talk about safety of our campuses. Before my kids were in school, I didn't have any way of receiving communication about schools and campuses. And so I think there's a lot of people with younger children who think it's a playground, kids aren't on it, they're in the building, we can go play. And they're not trying to break the rules, but they don't know the rules and we don't know how to communicate with those parents. So I'm not sure what the solve is there, but I feel like we need to come up with some creative way to try to reach out to those communities, because it's very often, I think, parents who just have no clue and we're not accessing them somehow. But thank you. We appreciate it. All right, we will move on to board reports. So I will let Director Lee lead us off if you have any reports.
Yeah, not much to report. I attended the first football game and that was very exciting. I don't get often to attend the high school football game, so that was fun. And I think it mimics the happiness and the joy and the spirit there. I think it mimics what I've heard that first week was like. My daughters at school have been ecstatic and hopeful and energetic about school and sharing that they have homework. And so that's the first. And so I'm excited about the right step and the right progress that we're moving towards.
Thank you, Director Nyangaro.
Well, as some may have heard, I've been hired to work for a company based in North Carolina. And as you may or may not know, school board members must live in the district. So I regret to announce that I will be resigning from the Sherwood District School Board effective November 1st. I made the decision with a heavy heart, but ultimately it was the right one for my family and me. It's been an absolute honor and privilege to serve our community on the Sherwood District School Board. I've enjoyed working with Madam Chair Hawkins, Vice Chair Thorne, Director Adamson, and Director Jeff Lee and former Director Hecker in the leadership team. I've learned and experienced so much over the past year and would not have traded it for anything. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Adamson.
That is a tough report to follow, and Director Nyangaro, our thoughts and best wishes go with you and your family as you embark in this new journey. Thank you for serving Sherwood, and we wish you all of the best. I'll miss you. You've been my seat buddy for the last year, and I'll miss sitting next to you, and the work that you bring and thoughtfulness you bring to the district. As a report, I had the pleasure of seeing the middle school get off to a start, and just the joy of all of the students and the cheers on Saturday mornings at games, and the sound of the football team. All of that has just been a joy. And so just grateful for everyone that is working so hard right now to deliver a great experience for our kids. And to the kids themselves for truly engaging in this school year and just giving it all they've got. It just, thanks to everybody.
Director Thorne.
Well, I did thank the principals for their spotlight on time, so I'll skip past that. But one thing that we keep hearing tonight is teacher morale. Teacher morale is up. You know, everyone's so excited. They're so happy. And, you know, that's a testament to the leadership in this district. And so I want to make sure that I extend my thanks to all of the leadership in this district for creating and fostering this environment of togetherness and community and excitement amongst our staff. It's like I said, so great to see. And when you have staff and leaders that are engaged and that are excited, and you know, that's going to trickle down to the success of our kids. So thank you to all of our leaders for fostering such a wonderful environment here in Sherwood. We really are the district, I feel, in Oregon. And so I look forward to being a part of watching you guys keep it that way. It's so cool to be a part of it and to have my kids in it, most of all. Next, I want to once again thank the teachers for creating such a great environment for the kids to come back to school. I know I touched on this briefly, so I won't spend much time on it, but it's our kids are so lucky and our parents are so lucky as well. I want to thank Officer Wolfer and his SRO corner updates. Those are extremely informative. One, I just ran across the most recent one today, which blew my mind. And so I have some phone research, sorry kids, to do when I get home. But those are so helpful, you know, and to have those also included in the school newsletters that go out. And that's just, this is what a community is all about, is keeping each other informed and all looking out for our kids together. So thank you, Officer Wolfer, if you're listening. Paisley touched on the homecoming volunteers that were needed. I was going to bring that up because I've seen a few of that. So just going to reiterate that. And then lastly, thank you, Director Nyangaro, for your service. I wish you and your family the absolute best. I'm a little fond of North Carolina and South Carolina, so there's a small part of me that's a little jealous, but but I'm excited for you. You guys are going to have a great start there, and congratulations on the new opportunity. And that concludes my board report.
Thank you. This is such a feel-good meeting. It feels like it should be like our Thanksgiving November meeting. We're so thankful tonight, and I love it. So a little bit of business with Director Nyangaro reporting his resignation. There will be information coming in communications and online, but we are going to be looking to open up that application process right away. We're hoping to open applications tomorrow. This will be a position that is by appointment, and they will serve in that position until July, correct? Until July. And then at that point, that position will be open. So this next election cycle, we will actually see 3 seats that are technically open. We will see the one that Director Lee sits in because his was for a certain term. And then we will see, that'll be a 4-year seat. We will have Director Adamson's, unless she graces us with running again. And then we will have a 2-year seat. I'll work on her. And then we have a 2-year seat for Director Nyangaro's position. So right now, if you are applying, you'll be looking to be appointed for just about 7 months. We will be accepting those applications until October 4th. We will close it down at that point just to review them. And I think we are going to be taking about 5 applicants forward into the interview process. That interview will happen at our next meeting on October 12th. And then that person will be getting started with us right away. So we encourage people to apply if they're truly interested. If you have questions, if you have concerns, anything you want to chat about, you are welcome. I mean, I'm putting this out there for all of us without their permission, but you are welcome to reach out to us and ask us questions. It's a lot more time and thought, and a lot of the decisions are big, heavy decisions. And so we want somebody who really is ready to be involved and has the time to be involved. And we would love to have those conversations with you now if you're interested, prior to after you've already applied and don't kind of know everything that maybe is involved. So please feel free to reach out to us. Is that okay that I'm saying that on behalf of all of us? Okay. Okay. So with that being said, we are going to move on to our public comment section. Public comments that we will be saying right now pertain to the agenda this evening. We only have 3 this evening and they all pertain to the agenda. So we will not have any following our action items this evening. When we have both in-person and electronic comments, we will alternate between the 2. If you've signed up to give comment like these 2 people have, I will call their name and welcome them to the podium. As a reminder, public comment is just a time for us to hear from you. We will not be responding to you during that time. However, we may be taking notes so that we can respond to you at a later time. And with that being said, I'm going to welcome Drew Gregory up to the podium. Are we okay with him about to get started? Yeah, looks like. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening, Chair Hawkins, Dr. Lyon, and Board of Directors. Today, I wanted to take some time to talk about the proposed social studies curriculum for K through 5 and share my opinion as a Sherwood School District student to all of you. Personally, I've had some experience with this curriculum during its pilot period last year. As a cadet teacher at Hawksview, I was asked to complete an example worksheet for students to follow. The assignment for these 5th graders was to choose a settlement, either Jamestown or Plymouth, and formulate an opinion regarding whether these colonies were built on the basis of cooperation, conflict, or both. Students were asked to gather these opinions based on a number of different documents, both primary and secondary. They then had to show which documents supported their opinion and why, as well as draw a picture to go with their evidence. For me, this assignment provided great insight as to what inquiry is all about, and is much more of an active learning take on education, allowing for students to think for themselves. This curriculum requires students to conceptualize different texts and formulate their own opinion, a skill which is crucial to furthering their learning abilities. It allows for students to make their own inquiries, if you will. Furthermore, this is a great example of surface level critical thinking education and would be very beneficial for students to learn how to do at a younger age, as a massive amount of high school assignments revolve around these exact skills. I'm sure all of my peers here with me today would agree that hands-on learning is a much more efficient way to approach education, as opposed to reading out of a textbook and being told what to think, which is how most of us learn social studies as kids. In 5th grade, I remember we had a unit where we had to facilitate our own colonies as a table group. I looked forward to this time in class every day and will continue to remember much more out of this unit than simply listening to a teacher speak at me. Inquiry does a great job at providing these opportunities for students and helps them to retain information much easier. I urge you all to pass the inquiry curriculum, especially when considering the alternative of individual teachers creating their own curriculum, which would be a very long and tedious process, as well as risky attempting to meet all the state standards when putting all the responsibility on each individual teacher. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. All right, and we will have one electronic comment whenever you are ready.
Shannon Miller, Sherwood. I would like to say thank you so much to the teachers and staff who have worked so hard for so long, carefully and intentionally choosing a social studies curriculum for our youngest kiddos that meets the state standards, fosters engagement, and creates opportunities for learning. It is a great curriculum that as a parent, I would love for my children. I encourage the board to please honor and respect the informed, well-researched, professional choice of the staff and approve the K-5 social studies curriculum. It's the right path forward for our students.
Thank you. All right, Sophia Majeski, you can join us. Did I say that right?
Hello, everyone. My name is Sophia Majeski. I'm a senior at the high school, and I'm the president of the Sherwood Student Union. Going into the school year, I had terrible senioritis. I was not looking forward to the first day of school as I normally do, as someone who really likes to learn. I was dreading waking up early, but first day of school immediately changed my mind. I think as the teacher or as the admin we're talking about today, I feel like not only is staff morale higher, but you can notice that student morale is higher as well. And I think that's all in part to our teachers. Like I have an AP Psych teacher and AP English teacher that have done such a good job of bringing positivity back to the classrooms. And that's been just so great. And it's really brought a lot of thankfulness towards all the staff I've ever interacted with in my time through the Sherwood School District. And I just appreciate so much all the time that everyone really puts in to our education, like the teaching and learning department putting on the listening session and Dr. Lyon being there as well. And I think it was about an hour and a half, something like that, of their free time in the evenings. And they were being very transparent about the curriculum, allowing us to ask questions, which I really appreciated. On that note, I have been interested in the K-5 social studies curriculum because I am very interested in education and I hope to be, I'm very interested in being an elementary school teacher one day. And so I looked a little bit into the curriculum, and from what I saw, I think it's really great. I love the interactive style of it. I remember in elementary school, there was a few units where we did like textbook reading, and we would do popcorn reading where each person just reads their own paragraph. And I remember reading the textbook, could not tell you what that textbook was about. But I remember in 5th grade when we learned about the Revolutionary War, and to recreate the shot heard around the world, we did a fight with paper balls. And I will always remember that. Or thinking of the mock Congress simulation I did in AP Gov, I know exactly how a law gets passed and how bills go through Congress. And I think that interactive learning is just so valuable for students. And as Drew brought up earlier, I think that interacting with the materials and having things that are interactive instead of just being told what to think is so useful for kids as they go into high school and middle school, because they're really building those skills that will serve them later on. And I think it's super great to be able to work in teams because you're really able to form your own opinions, even if it's about, if there's more sensitive materials, kids are able to disagree with it or agree with it, and they compare different sources and they can make their own opinions and really interact with the material, which I think is really great. I think to me, it sounded like this Inquiry Journeys curriculum is the best option out of everything. And I think our staff and teaching and learning department put a lot of time into researching it. And I think if there were to be any disagreements with parents or anything like that over anything, from seeing how dedicated all of our staff has been, I think they would be more than willing to listen to any concerns that were to come up. So I urge everyone on the board to please vote yes for this curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes our public comment section for items pertaining to tonight's agenda. I would like to invite Ms. Marlene Carroll to the podium for a second read of our K-5 elementary social science curriculum.
All right. Thank you, Board Chair Hawkins, Dr. Lyon, and board members. In June, we proposed adopting Inquiry Journeys for our K-5 elementary social science instructional materials. At the same time, we shared the materials with the community and asked for feedback. The materials were available online, and we hosted a community review night as well as a listening session recently focused on the platform. We had a total of 25 respondents at the time of the publication of the board packet, but between that time and now, we had one additional respondent. So for a total of 26, which is actually our best turnout ever. So 24 were in favor of the committee's recommendation. Respondents indicated that they liked the inquiry approach, the engaging materials, the questioning approach to learning, and how students will have the opportunity to see themselves in the world and in the future. One respondent shared, "I see the use of primary and secondary sources as a big strength of this curriculum, but I think the biggest strength is the curriculum's active engagement. The emphasis on thinking about what they learn and asking questions about what can the students do to make their community and society a better place for all." Another respondent shared that they like that the instruction is open-ended and encourages critical thinking as opposed to rote learning. They also indicated that they wanted to see a curriculum as neutral as possible and one that allows parents to play a leading role in forming the worldviews of their young children. Finally, there was one response that was not in support of the committee's recommendation. The respondent indicated that the materials focus too much on group work, inquiry, and culturally relevant teaching practices. Tonight, we are here. We are bringing the K-5 social science instructional materials adoption inquiry journeys up for second read and adoption.
Okay, do I have a motion to adopt the K-5 elementary social science curriculum?
Yeah, Chair Hawkins. I have some questions.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for your work. My first question is, one of the objectives that was mentioned previously was that it was related to SB 13 standards. In what way does the inquiry process satisfy those requirements?
The inquiry process really supports the SB 13 tribal history, shared history lesson plan. So when the state, the Oregon Department of Education, and the Confederated Tribes came together and they designed the SB 13 tribal history, shared history lesson plans, they did it with the approach of inquiry. So if you look online, you can see all those lessons available. They're all available to the public, but you'll see the same type of approach, the essential question, kind of guiding students through different sources, and then students come up with a conclusion about whatever the lesson's pertaining to.
Okay. In the vision statement and other points, it was mentioned that the term critical thinkers is used. What is your definition or operationalization of critical thinking?
In general, I think most teachers would say that critical thinking is really teaching students how to think, not necessarily what to think. It's taking students beyond memorization to classifying and categorizing things, understanding patterns, really looking at analysis and synthesizing information that they find and see. It's working in groups to come up with a solution to whatever challenge they're trying to solve, or making decisions based off of the learning that they have. Like the students we heard earlier, we definitely see in classrooms that students get excited when they get to do some of those more hands-on activities.
Who provides the firsthand or secondhand sources in the curriculum?
Okay. So our primary sources in this materials in this adoption really look like things that many of us would recognize. So there's a few things that I think you'll all recognize. But like the preamble to the Declaration of Independence is in there. That would be a primary source. Footage from the 1963 March on Washington, that would be a primary source. Any sort of audio recording from MLK Junior's I Have a Dream speech, that's a primary source. And then there's an article about the Boston Tea Party from the 1773 Boston Gazette, that all of those are primary sources. But many other lessons directly relate to other primary sources, and they're culled from different publications or different institutions. So we have resources in this curriculum from a variety. I'm going to name a few, but the American Museum of Natural History, the Boston Tea Party Ships and Museum, Colonial Williamsburg Foundation, Constitutional Rights Foundation, the Library of Congress, National Archives, National Museum of American Indian History, National Park Services, the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, because if we're looking at artwork, photographs, drawings, depictions, those are all primary sources and they're included in this material.
And so I'm clear, so it's the inquiry ed that selects the infinite amount of primary sources and puts it in, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. In the modules and inquiry section, let's see, actually, I'll just skip that one. Okay, so in the examples used by the teachers previously, they describe student involvement, including the following: working in small groups, analyzing primary, secondary sources, gathering evidence, selecting multiple sources of support for claims, and presenting findings. Are these practices independent from this curriculum? Meaning, can these same practices be implemented in other curriculums where or were they present before this curriculum was developed, or will they be present afterwards? Can a teacher with any curriculum implement these same practices in the classroom?
Certainly. So these practices are utilized and implemented in a variety of settings in a variety of content areas. The challenge with social science in particular, though, is that for elementary teachers to create instructional teaching practices, or what we often say are strategies, and simultaneously find all of these resources for students to do the inquiry process with, it becomes quite a workload issue and quite a time management issue. So that costs additional time and money and funding, and then a structure for those teachers to do both of those things, because it's not just the resources, it's the teaching, it's the strategy behind it. And yes, we do it in all of those, but why we want to pair it with both the resources that the curriculum provides and the structure of teaching us all how to do that in that systematic way is so that we can do it really well.
Okay, but all those practices could be implemented within curriculum, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then in the June board meeting, it was noted, it was asked, I suppose, is the inquiry process now the standard for, and this is quote, is the inquiry process now the standard for social science teaching? If you were to look at best practice, evidence-based, optimal for kids, to present information in an unbiased way and allow kids to draw their own conclusions and to be able to learn. And my question to you is, and the answer to that was correct, that was a best standard and evidence-based practice. Is that, am I remembering that correctly?
I believe so.
So the main thing I want to is this, so it was asserted that it was a best practice, evidence-based and optimal for kids, but what evidence do you have for this assertion? Are you aware of any journal articles that have compared any curriculums?
I'm going to just ask for clarification around the last bit. Am I aware of any journal articles that compare other curriculums?
Or any type of curriculum to each other? So curriculums comparing curriculums to each other.
I'm not necessarily aware of journal articles that compare different curriculums. The state of Oregon does a review process with different curriculums. They only reviewed one curriculum for the social science, and that was the Pearson's curriculum. And their process is a little bit different than what we go through as a curriculum review process.
And the other part was just about the assertion that it was a best practice. Is there any other evidence for this assertion?
So yes, I think there is. The C3 framework is very well researched. And it was, and I can share a little bit about that. The college career and civic life, which is C3, right? For social science standards was developed, and some of the kind of participating bodies that came together to develop this is the American Bar Association, the American Historical Association, the Association of American Geographies, Campaign for Civic Mission of Schools, Center for Civic Education, Constitutional Rights Foundation, Chicago Constitutional Rights Foundation of USA, Council for Economic Education, National Council for Geographic Education, National Council for History Education, National Council for the Social Science, National Geographic Society, National History Day, Street Law Inc., World History Association. All of those groups came together and vetted and worked on this and represented the C3 framework. It is not just an Oregon thing.
Those are all my questions. I do have a prepared statement, so I will share that whenever the board is ready.
Is it a motion or just a statement?
It's just a statement. One of the things that has been mentioned was the community, I think, enjoying and benefiting, knowing our votes and the rationale behind it. And so I wanted to be able to provide that just prior to the vote.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I believe the proper order of that is to make a motion, and then we'll all have a chance to make a statement before we vote.
Sure. That's fair. We'll make sure you get to do that though. Yes, definitely. Okay, thank you for answering all those questions. Are there any other questions before we move to make a motion? It would appear there are not. Okay, does anybody have a motion to adopt the K-5 elementary social science curriculum?
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the Inquiry Journey social science curriculum for grades K through 5.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion?
I would like to motion to have to share my thoughts. Oh, I would like to. Okay, so I can make a statement. Okay. This is a learning process for me.
All of us.
Okay. So I would like to start by sharing my appreciation for the work the curriculum team has put into the curriculum search and fielding my and others' questions. I've sent a lot of them to you, so I do appreciate that. My opposition to the curriculum did not come lightly. I began by randomly selecting one topic from each grade 1st through 5th, and then going through every module and reviewing all the source material from that topic through the entire unit. I watched all of the 2002 Inquire Ed training modules and many of the 2021 modules posted on YouTube, totaling more than 20 hours. I reviewed many of the materials and resources on acquireed.org and the C3 framework publications and resources from the National Council for the Social Studies website. I've also read one of the Inquiry Ed's course presenters and trainer, their book that they wrote, A New Canon, Designing Culturally Sustaining Humanities Curriculum. Finally, I did a lit review of meta-analyses, specifically comparing school curriculums. And when I found nothing, I did a search on meta-analyses of factors that contribute to student outcomes. I found and read a 2013 meta-analysis of studies exploring factors of effective teaching as measured by student outcome. I have many concerns about the Acquired Ed curriculum that I will elucidate. The claim that this is a gold standard or best practice evidence optimal for kids to present information in an unbiased way is unfounded and unsupported. Nowhere in the Inquiry Ed website, in their training or any search that I could find would support that claim. The pilot phase of this program that did not employ any of the methodological rigor that would lead to those conclusions. Furthermore, I could not find any journal articles comparing curriculums on the basis of student outcomes, but was able to find one meta-analysis that composed of 167 article studies addressing teacher skills and practices, not curriculum, further calls into question this claim. This is even more so for the specific Inquiry Ed curriculum. Therefore, I'm not convinced that this curriculum is, quote, best practice, or even in our children's best interest. In fact, the literature seems to suggest a focus on teachers, not curriculum, that would likely have a better outcome for students. As has been reaffirmed today, and what is consistent with the co-founder of the Inquiry Ed system, Shanti Elgavan, I hope I pronounced that right, has stated, and the meta-analysis that I read, that skills such as breaking into groups, using first and second-hand sources, dialogue and debate, gathering data, presenting conclusions, and other teaching practices are independent of this curriculum. These are teaching skills. These skills existed prior to Inquiry Ed and are present in other curricula and will exist after Inquiry Ed. There's nothing inherent about Inquiry Ed or C3 that manifests these skills, nor do these skills necessarily require or lead to the Inquiry curriculum. I agree that these skills are teaching attributes that we want to in our district, and it is important to embolden and support our teachers who employ these skills. Indeed, I see no reason to conclude that the teachers' experiences in the pilot program you conducted is more of a manifestation of their exceptional skills and love of teaching than the prescribed curriculum. Stated another way, I believe we have exceptional teachers here in Sherwood, and what was observed in a pilot study you conducted was an example of two great teachers, not an effective curriculum. I have read all the emails sent to the board about this curriculum, and I'm in agreement with many of the sentiments that the procedures and practices that were described sound great and probably contribute to a better student outcome. Incidentally, this is also consistent with the meta-analysis. My concern is not with the practices or teaching skills, but with the Inquiry Ed curriculum itself. It has been stated multiple times that critical thinking is of highest priority, which I agree. However, this term means two different things that are often conflated. One type of critical thinking is associated with epistemic adequacy, consisting of the use of data, hypothesis testing, rational thought, and adhering to logical principles. Another version of critical theory is which is exclusively interested in social change, an activist approach. It is the latter version that the Inquiry Ed curriculum employs. I will explain. This committee's own vision statement concludes with the objective of, quote, develop a broader view of community and culture in order to navigate and impact the world, end quote. On the C3 website, the objective is, quote, and for this curriculum is, quote, to identify and analyze public problems, deliberate with other people about how to define and address issues, take constructive action together, reflect on their actions, create and sustain groups, and influence institutions both large and small, end quote. On the Inquiry Ed's webpage, it reads the process is to, quote, create solutions that transform the world around them. The training modules asserted that the program is to, quote, effect change. The presenters at the trainings refer to the philosophy that espouses the activist approach, either as implied in their training or by Dr. Gutierrez's book, which I read. The modules specifically states, quote, to guide their exploration, they're speaking of the children, to guide their exploration into civic participation, end quote. And the inquiry's question is supposed to directly link to the action at the last stage. This is particularly concerning because the inquiry questions are provided by the curriculum developers outside the classroom. This process has the same pitfalls, biases, and methodological problems that a pharmaceutical company researching its own drug might have. I want to take a moment and walk through one example. In the 5th grade unit, Rights and Responsibilities, the question, how can we contribute to a healthy democracy, which is linked in the inquiry product as stated. Students will take informed action in the final module in this unit, the action module. In this unit, in module 4, voting, specifically why young voting turnout is so low is asked. A YouTube video that is littered with biased information, logical fallacies, and factors that obscure the facts is offered as what I can only assume is the first or second-hand source. I am being only slightly hyperbolic when I say that nearly every sentence in that video was problematic. For example, the strawman statement that older generations merely assert millennials are lazy as an explanation of low voting turnout. Select another example. The presenter selects countries with low voting turnout instead of countries with high voter turnout, such as Sweden, Australia, or Denmark, as a comparison. This is a selection or possibly a confirmation bias, looking for data to prove a point. This is part of that video. Another part is it opines that young people like race or class may experience voter suppression or for spurious reasons. For example, they say they do not have a car, yet they fail to recognize that most young people live in metropolitan areas where public transportation is available. So this is an invalid claim. As for biases, when positing that the young are politically active, then use examples of Black Lives Matter or March for Our Lives as examples of young people who take to the streets and walk out of their classrooms and protest institutional racism and our nation's gun laws. These two examples are obviously biased. And to be fair, I would also have the same objection if they were youth involvement as examples of the NRA as an example. Then, as another example, it also then states as an example of the increased voting activity as this trend, and I quote, "This trend will hopefully continue, especially as we start to see more and more candidates who both look like us," and then names Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and John James. Notwithstanding the fact that the presenter provided no basis or rationale for this assertion, and was merely speculating on that was a causal factor, but promoting voting in part on the basis of how someone looks is not a precedent we want our children to be taught. The final module in the same unit is, quote, "using the conclusions and key findings from their investigation to impact the world beyond their classroom," end quote. And given from what the video's promoting, I have a serious problem with this. Given the misinformation and bias from the previous module, it is quite concerning what the children's conclusions would be, and then how they would, quote, "impact the world" based on those conclusions. My point is that it is not the skills or practices of our excellent teachers that I am worried about. It is literally the type of critical thinking that is taught to our children. This is critically important because these K-5 children are at the developmental stage of concrete operational cognitive development. It is during this developmental stage that children are quite literally learning how to think about things, developing their method of inquiry. The facts are that the inquiry questions are provided to the teachers and students by the curriculum developers. Those questions are intentionally linked to activism at the end of the unit. There are clear problems with the so-called first and second-hand resources provided by the curriculum developers. The critical thinking in this curriculum is not what most would believe. It is clearly designed for social change, not epistemic adequacy. As a person who has dedicated my adult life to the social sciences, I have seen firsthand from undergraduate and graduate students the negative impact this activist model of critical thinking has had in my profession and in many people's lives. As a psychologist, I cannot, in good conscience, condemn our children to this type of inquiry process. I do not think Sherwood children are best served by this or any activist approach. And it's for this reason I will vote no for this curriculum. However, I also can appreciate that this curriculum may need to be passed. The one thing that I can that I can agree is that, and that may mediate the negative impact this curriculum would have on our children, is the thoughtfulness, skills, and expertise of our Sherwood teachers. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. You look like you have something to say, so go ahead.
Thank you, Director Lee, for all of that information. That was a lot of very, very good information. And that was a lot of time that you spent in researching it as well. I think over 100 hours is what you said.
It was a lot.
Okay. Well, it was far more than I did. And I did some. I watched, you know, when this first, I like to see kind of the origins, right, of where people are coming from. And so I as well watched some videos from the creator of this curriculum. And I'm not going to lie, you know, I was a little concerned with some of the things that she had to say. And so of course it made me research more about it. And I agree. I trust the teachers in this district, and I trust the leadership in this district to do what's best for our students. As far as, you know, to respond a little bit to the community feedback, having objections or questions or simply wanting to learn more about something so important, such as a curriculum adoption, should in no way be is in no way intended to imply that myself or anyone else thinks that the professionals in this district are not professional or don't know what they're doing. That was a theme of a lot of communications, and that wasn't the point. The point is that I believe that everybody that sits up here takes their role very, very seriously. And we all, as I said earlier, want what's best for our kids. And so I also have objections to this curriculum. I believe that the inquiry model is a great model. I think that's a great way to learn, by collaborating together, by finding conclusions. The creator of this curriculum and the resources that are provided in some of these lessons, I don't agree with. I think there's so many better things to be learning from, but there's a lot to choose from. There's a lot to choose from, and that's what's also great about it. So, so I agree with a lot of what you said. Like I said, I'm thankful for all of your information, and I'm thankful that there's a lot of topics and lessons in this curriculum that can be chosen that don't fall into the lines of teaching an 8-year-old how to be an activist, because that's not what educators are there to do. They're there to teach, you know? And so I trust that the district, with the oversight of leadership, will implement the curriculum and adopt the lessons from the curriculum that are what's best for the Sherwood kids. That is where my trust lies. Nothing is perfect. This curriculum certainly is not perfect. It has a lot of flaws. And I'll go on the record with saying I wholeheartedly disagree with a lot of the things that the creator has to say. You know, we're allowed to have our beliefs. What we're not supposed to do is bring those beliefs into the realm of education. We should let kids decide for themselves what they believe. So that is my statement on that. And my second still stands. But as far as I wanted to tell you how much I appreciate that. And thank you for the education, for also educating the community on where the objections were coming from as well.
Go ahead, Director Robinson.
Thank you. Many of you know, or if you don't know, you ever read voters pamphlet statement when I ran. I've spent my life in advocacy and public service. And I decided to spend my life doing that when I was in 4th grade, and our teacher took us to the state capitol. And you can walk up, well, you can't right now because it's under construction, but before and after construction, you could walk up the stairs and walk into the rotunda. And for me, that was the moment I knew that's when I wanted to spend my life and career doing that. Because what I had learned in my social studies class that was very like, let me read and have you take a test, but was clear is that we could all change the world. That we all had the tools because we lived in a country where that was part of the deal, that anyone could introduce a bill, could get a bill introduced and advocate for it. And so thereby you could change the world in ways large and small at either the city council or at a school board meeting. We've got students sitting here tonight trying to think about ways to change the way that we operate. And I think that that's a good thing. That our government isn't static because people can redress their government and change it. And that doesn't mean change it one way only. Government changes and ebbs and flows and in ways that are understandable and at times baffling. And that all depends upon the perspective that you bring to it. So as I look at this curriculum and I reflect upon my own experience, not everyone's going to have the experience I have. The people will go and do different things. And I think the beauty of this district is we want to open doors for students to go and do whatever their heart desires. But they're going to have an impact in the world, and the world is going to impact them one way or another. As I've looked at this curriculum through the lens of someone who spent their life also in the social sciences, also very dedicated to making sure there's an opportunity to change the world in sometimes ways that are that folks in this room may agree and disagree with, which is the point, right? Like we live in a country where you can disagree. At the elementary school level, we shouldn't be teaching particular perspectives. And I'm really proud that this district has strong policies about teachers not bringing their personal view into the classroom. Those policies have existed long before I joined the board, and they continue on, and they should. They should be an absolute guiding post. But we have an obligation, even at an early level, to teach kids that they can change the world, that it isn't static, and that they can and should engage it. And so I think that this curriculum, in fact, does that in a way that is hands-on. And where I absolutely agree with Director Lee is that we have outstanding teachers. And that is the single most important thing, is who is the person in front of the room leading the instruction. And we have the best here in Sherwood. And I have been proud to serve on a board to help them do their jobs. What I'm cognizant of tonight and why I'm very strongly supporting this curriculum is that it is tied back to a national standard of doing inquiry as a best model. And I appreciate there might be different points of view on that, but I have always believed that if you're engaging students and they're paying attention and they aren't nodding off in the back of the classroom, that you have a better shot at folks remembering the lesson about the shot heard around the world years and years later. And I'm glad to hear that we've had those moments here in Sherwood. I hope we create more. And I think it's important for us to recognize that without a curriculum that meets state standards, the chances are that our friends at the Department of Education can come in here and start dictating to us what those lessons look like. They're not going to leave us alone and just allow us to do what we want for a few years. They're going to be in here. And that, I think, is very disruptive. We're asking elementary school teachers, my mom was an elementary school teacher, we're asking them to teach it all day long. And so the idea that they would have the time or the effort or the resources, or that we could create a curriculum that would both meet state standards and with ODE looking over our shoulder, and that would be implementable in a way that we can afford, I think is unlikely. And I think puts a huge burden on the shoulders of teachers at a time where we're just starting to get teacher morale go up, saying to them, create this in addition to all of the other subjects that you're teaching. It doesn't seem right to me. We have a curriculum that meets state standards. It keeps ODE out of our backyard, trying to tell us what to do. And I think kids collaborating, learning together, again, with that very important guidepost of not telling them what to think, but learning how to think, I think is really important. Last but not least, for those that weren't at the listening night, but that are listening this evening, there has been a commitment that what will happen after, hopefully this is adopted, is a conversation about scope and sequence. You get a really large curriculum that you can't use all of. You can only use some of. And how it's chosen to be learned, and the idea that everyone's learning the same thing kind of at the same time, means our teachers, who are the experts, are going to sit down and figure out what lessons are we going to teach and in what sequence are we going to teach them. And all of that information is going to come right back to this board, so we have a chance to continue to do oversight and provide insight. That's really what's going to matter at the end of the day. I trust our teachers. I trust our teaching and learning team to do that well. I think this curriculum provides a good lane for us to accomplish what we all agree on. And I'm looking forward to voting yes here in a minute. Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys all for sharing with us. I know it's been a lot of information. I think if nothing else, this has highlighted for us a need to just discuss adoption earlier on. You know, I know we've talked about that, but there's a lot of perspective, a lot of opinions. People bring different education backgrounds to this, and that's wonderful. I think we can serve our kids best if we are all working in collaboration. However, it'd be great to be doing it before, 9 p.m., the second read of something that's been worked on for several years. So that is something that I know we are making a commitment to modify, because we want to respect your guys' time and your efforts. Okay, with that being said, we have we have a first and a second motion on the table. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay.
Nate,
Turned off my mic. Motion carries 4-1. Okay, at this time, thank you so much. And thank you for answering all of those questions. At this time, we are going to take a short recess to regroup over a couple things coming up, and we will be back in about 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, we are going to call this meeting back to order. Thank you for allowing us to take a quick recess. Next up, I'm going to invite Dr. Lyon to present the OSBA policy updates for a second read.
All right, thank you very much. And last month, we walked through a handful of policies that we talked about, most of them being legal required language changes. And along the way, we had two board of director members talk about tweaks in some of the language. You can pick either or. For example, in one policy, you can pick K through 12, or you can pick all grades, right? And so this was brought up by a board member, and and this is a little rust being knocked off. What should have happened there is we take that recommendation, and in fact, I changed it from, in that case, K-12 to all grades. And there was a little nuance in changing it to all grades. But what failed to happen was that the rest of the board got a look at that. So what I would recommend is on those 4 policies that we have made minor tweaks, more just nuances than anything else, let's pull them. There's no harm in pulling them. And then let's do that process where you all can see the strike through and the suggested change, and collectively walk in here and have all that same information. So I would recommend, and I can read the policies, it's IB, IJ, JB, and JFCF, all legally required policies with a couple of word choices that we need to smooth out and get everybody on the same page next month.
So we'll get the board members that haven't seen this, we'll get those to review, and then we'll bring them for adoption.
That is correct. That is correct. And that will provide you the opportunity to see the strike through, see the recommended language in its final form, which did not happen this evening.
Okay.
And that is my mistake that I made, really, which is fine.
We're all learning the process here. This is totally fine.
Russ,
Whatever. The good news is this is an opportunity for us to be really transparent with each other and have a chance to have a dialogue in advance of coming back next month. So Madam Chair, if I may, I'd like to move that policies IB, IJ, JB, and JFCF be held over till the October 12th meeting for second reading, and that we adopt the remaining policies as presented.
Excellent. Do I have a second?
A second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. All right. We have no additional public comments for this evening. Our next meeting will be held on October 12th. I hope you're able to join us at that time. This meeting for this evening is adjourned. Good job, guys. We made it through.